Hey there, it's David Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com, and I am stuck in Atlanta traffic looking for a way to stay productive this morning. So I wanted to start with our third step in our four-part series of my final expense presentation that I teach my agents. And we've covered rapport and introduction. We've also gone in depth with the pre-qualification stage, and now we're going to talk about the actual meat and potatoes presentation. Now I want to interject something at this point. It's very important to understand that my approach to presenting is based upon me satisfying the requirements at each step of the presentation. So for example, I don't present or actually do the selling part of the presentation until I have introduced myself and built rapport, and definitely only after I do the pre-qualification stage. And it's very simple. My whole philosophy with presenting final expense life insurance is that I do not want to present to an unqualified prospect. As I've made clear in my other videos, I want to talk and sell to somebody who has a budget, who has an account I can draft my premiums from, and who qualifies from a health point and has an underlying need that can clearly and coherently express that need. And so if I have somebody who can do that, then that's when I get to the point of presenting, because I know that they're really set up to probably go ahead and buy from me. So what do I actually do when I present? Well, my presentation is designed to be fact-filled, educational, thought-provoking, and clearly designed to make it obvious, even to the most dim-witted of prospects, why my solution is the best option. And luckily in the final expense business, we've got a lot of junk products to compare ours to, so it becomes abundantly clear that what we do is clearly the best solution for the product, or for the prospect. So what I do is a simple term versus whole life presentation. It's very simple. What I do is I discuss the differences between what term insurance is and whole life insurance. And I always start it off by describing what the other guys do. So for example, I know that AARP and Globe, and as you do too hopefully, those guys do a group level term product that has rising premiums and cancellations right about the time when you need the insurance the most. And so I go into detail about what this is, who the people are that sell this garbage. And I show them in a actual letter that I receive from AARP or Globe what I'm talking about, so they can see it for themselves. And I always recommend my agents laminate the sales letter that they send off to solicit these people, and highlight the parts where the fine print is hidden, and so that they can see it for themselves. And a lot of times that's a great selling point, is just show them what the other guy's trying to sell them on. And a lot of times they just get mad because they're used to getting ripped off, and they don't like insurance agents and insurance because of garbage like this. So I go through term first, then I move into the whole life presentation. I move into the guaranteed issue part of the presentation. Only when the person can qualify for first full day coverage or partial first day coverage. So I mentioned Colonial Penn, Physicians Mutual, MetLife on TV. All of them are very familiar with these ads. And I show them again with their solicitations they mail, the 2-year wait that they have to go through before they're actually covered, again, which most are unaware. By this time, they're pretty disgusted by what they see, and they're interested to see what I can do differently. And that's when I go into the description of the basic points of why someone would buy and what the benefits are. I don't go into detail about the cash value. What I simply say is my product's what's called whole life final expense programs. The way they work is very simple. It's a guaranteed way to have coverage from the first day to your last without any risk of losing it because you get too old or your health changes, or the risk of having a price increase. So what I do is go over and say, first, your price never goes up. Whatever I quote you stays the same the rest of your life. Number two, That coverage never cancels either, so you don't have to worry about outliving it and wasting all this money for nothing. And then lastly, you're covered 100% or you're covered partially with a graded product, depending on the situation, from the very first day. So God forbid if something happens earlier than expected, you're covered. And usually I seg you into a story about maybe somebody I knew who died within the first 2 years that had a payout, one of my clients in a certain area. And I definitely recommend inserting stories as you experience them as an agent. It is the best way to humanize an intangible product, because ultimately that's what we all buy it for. God forbid if the worst case happens. And so I always talk about people who die within the first 2 years, like with Colonial Penn, and how the family suffered, or how somebody paid for years on a term plan that eventually canceled out on them and went up in price. And but the point is, I humanize it and give them a visual picture of the pain and suffering that these other people experienced, so that they can really get an idea of how bad it can become. And that makes my process of selling the product that much easier. Now, once I present all this, I summarize my product as a what you see is what you get type of solution. You pay your premium. You have coverage from your first day to your last. We don't cancel you and we don't raise your prices. It's guarantees that make this product different from the rest. And then I do what's called a trial close. That's an expression I use to tell my agents. I say I like the prospect to hang themselves. What I like to do is I like to hear them tell me that they need what I'm selling them. And so the phraseology I use is, Mr. Prospect, out of these three options, term insurance that cancels, the Colonial Penn type of coverage that doesn't cover you, or mine that actually does the job and never cancels on you, what do you think works best for you? And they tell me that they think mine's the best. And then they hear themselves saying this, and what happens is that they end the call, they end the presentation, sold. And that's the way I like it. And so when I get that verbal confirmation, I know that they're 99% there, that they're going to buy, if I can fit it to their budget, which I've already done. But they're pre-sold, they get it, they got it, it's good, they understand what it is. So, there should be very minimal objection to the actual product, because they know what the other guys do. And that's really another point as to why I present the way I do, is when I show my product, I want them to understand not only is this a good price and it's going to cover you, but it's going to do a lot better job than all the other guys will do. And that is so important to clarify, because you want to knock out the objection ahead of time of, I can shop this around. Or what about the guys on TV or in the mail? They're all name brand stuff they've been receiving for years. And you got to think in your presentation process, how do I manage that so it doesn't become an objection and a problem that I have to overcome? So that's the presentation. Very straightforward. There's no hype in what I say. It's all the facts. But the facts sell to somebody who's interested, that's pre-qualified. You don't need to try to excite them or turn them into an emotional mess. You just tell them about what they do and what you do, and show them in stories through your personal experience as agents as to why it's good to have what you have, but also why it's really bad and painful to make the wrong decision. And the choice will be obvious for the people with half a brain. So that's it for the presentation. Again, this is David Duford with Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com. Check my other videos out. I've got a lot of them. A lot of good resources to get involved in a final expense business. And feel free to visit my website if you're interested to hear more about the mentorship program. And as always, take care.